All right, and we are all ready to go. Thank you so much for joining us for our coffee Q&A this morning. Some of you might have joined us over the summer where we hosted these coffee Q&As on every concert day. And Taylor and I hosted those this summer, but this morning is our first time in the hot seat. So we are taking your questions, and I believe in one of the promotion things it said no topic is off limits, so within reason you can submit any questions that you have for us. If you're on Zoom, put that in the chat or the Q&A, and if you're on Facebook, you can just punch in your comments to the questions in the comment section, and we'll make sure to hit those, and we'd love to know what questions you have for us. But in the meantime, I thought we'd get started talking a little bit about this recital, Love Letters, which is coming up to stream this Saturday, December 5th at 7:30 p.m. Central. And you can find all the information about Love Letters at our website, lakesareamusic.org/love-letters. And Taylor, we typically do a winter recital, just the two of us. And lots of times we kind of have a major work that we want to do, and that kind of fills the time of a program. I know we've done Winteriza, which in itself is one program. This program's a little bit different in that it's a really great variety of shorter pieces. And I think just to get started, knowing that we were going to do a streaming concert this summer after we presented Eric Korngold's Piano Quintet on our season. That's a piece that I've played once and really love. And I realized that Korngold also wrote a set of 4 songs with the same themes in it. So post-festival, as I was sitting around with less to do than usual, we started talking a little bit with that piece. And I know you also had a piece you wanted to do, and out of that evolved this idea. So where did that idea meet you, and how did you kind of take it and find all these other pieces on our program?
Yeah, I think we almost missed one point of the impetus for the recital, which is you getting a new piano. Like, you just got not just any piano, but a beautiful piano in your home. So I think we were looking for things that would show off that instrument, as well as things that we really wanted to perform. And I know that you were really looking forward to practicing this repertoire on your new instrument. So that was a lot of fun. I came to the program knowing that we would probably do the Korngold, and I had just been shown a piece by Gerald Barry, who is an Irish composer, and somebody came to me with it and was like, this piece seems really perfect for you. And it was an interesting process because it's a piece that's for a chamber orchestra, not for piano. So we went through sort of discussing with the composer whether we were allowed to do the piano arrangement as a performer, as a performance, and figuring out how that would work. And from there, somehow we landed on the theme of Love Letters. The piece by Gerald Barry, which is called Beethoven, confusingly, is settings of love letters that Beethoven himself wrote. And I think from there, as we were looking at the Korngold and this Gerald Barry piece and starting to find other repertoire, that theme of love letters started to sort of coalesce. And it was some of them are very directly about letters, about love letters, and others are more love letters in a poetic sense where you have somebody speaking to a distant beloved. So yeah, that's kind of how it came together, I think.
Yeah, and we had talked about a couple other pieces, Beethoven's Adelaide leading into that Barry as kind of his very nice setting of someone else's love letter poetry, then using his actual words.
Mhm.
And then I think I was, once we got that far and came up with that theme, I kind of turned you loose, going out to find a lot of other pieces to add in with that theme. And I was surprised with some of the pieces you came back with, because there are a number of composers I hadn't heard of before, and definitely songs that I hadn't found, and some that it's even hard to find the music or recording. So how
Yeah.
did you start going down the rabbit holes that you must have done to find all these different pieces?
Well, I think this summer in particular, we really, I think, both had a wake up call that we were not doing a good enough job of finding and highlighting composers of color, female composers, thing like this. So this is sort of a project that we've both been working on for many months now. And through that process, it's amazing how many amazing composers we have discovered that were, I mean, we didn't discover them, but they were new to us in programming.
Yeah.
And so it's been really great to look at some of these composers and just go down their catalog of works and
Mm-hmm.
see how many of them, in addition to writing orchestral music, operas, things like that, wrote art songs, wrote songs for voice and piano. So I think that was one impetus. In terms of the living composers on the program, I mentioned the Barry. We're also starting the program with a piece by Kate Soper, who is a composer that I've been interested in for a long time. She is a vocalist and flute player, so a lot of her pieces are for voice and flute. I knew that you would not be learning the flute for this recital, but I did discover this piece of hers called "So Dawn Chromatically Descends Today," which is really interesting, and we ended up using it as sort of the concert opener. She weaves together. Well, she doesn't weave together. She starts it with a text by Fred Laerdal, which is actually a music history or musicology text, sort of describing the way that music conveys emotion in the Western tradition. And then she uses the very famous poem by Robert Frost, Nothing Gold Can Stay, to to put those techniques into use. And it's a really interesting, I like to think of it as a love letter to vocal music in general. In addition to that, we are doing a set by Samuel Coleridge Taylor called The Songs of Sun and Shade. This is a set, again, that I did not know and had not heard of before this,
And I
but
think
is, yeah, go ahead.
this summer on our festival season, we presented Samuel Coleridge Taylor's Nonette,
Mhm.
which for those of you who watch our concerts was the one with the piano in the middle, strings on one side, and then winds and brass behind their sound shields on the
Right.
other side. But that was, I think that was the first I knew of Samuel Coleridge Taylor as a composer also. So it's fun now to take some of the learning that we did this summer and discover more works.
Yeah, and I think that set, the Songs of Sun and Shade, ended up being some of our favorite things to perform and practice. They're just
Mhm.
sumptuous bonbons of music. They're so lovely and so fun to perform. Um, and there's, once we had that sort of framework of a few pieces and we knew that it was going to be about love letters, that then from that skeleton we then sort of could add on with pieces that were more directly in that theme, especially some of the more traditional German songs that we've done in the past, things by Schubert, especially, and Schumann. But I think it was fun to create this sort of patchwork program around this theme and to use some of the research that we've been doing over the past few months to broaden our perspective of the composers and the types of pieces that we were going to perform.
Mm-hmm. So I do see a question here that we'll get to in a second. Just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, you can put your questions in the chat or Q&A. And if you are joining us on Facebook Live, you can just put any questions you have for Taylor and I in the comments. But before moving on to the question, Sherry Delahunt did say here she loves knowing more about the pieces. So I want to go just one step further in talking about the music, and specifically have you talk a little bit about the piece by Susan Kander, because I think it was especially fun putting that one together, and how we could communicate with her, which we obviously can't do with Schubert.
Absolutely. So Susan is somebody who I have known. She's based in New York City, and we've known each other for almost a decade now. And she was looking to get some of her songs recorded over this month, and it happened that one of the songs that she was looking for really fit well into the program. It's called Sometimes. She wrote both the text and the music. And what I like about this piece is that unlike some of the really flowery romantic language of a love letter, this is a very everyday, real life love letter to an imperfect partner who maybe leaves the cap off of the toothpaste or leaves the closet door open or things like this. But the tenderness of the emotion and the realness of the situation, I think, really makes that piece special. And again, we're talking about putting this together. I don't think we've ever done a premiere on one of our recitals, but this year we are presenting the premiere of this piece by Susan Kander, as well as the US premiere of Beethoven by Barry, which I mentioned earlier. So that's another added excitement to the program.
Mm-hmm. I think it was fun doing Susan's piece because we ended up being able to rehearse a little bit, record it, and send it to her. And then she could write back either with feedback about our interpretation, or sometimes even cutting a note or two in the piano or adjusting things a little bit. So in a way, she was involved in the process of the performance as well, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's like she was another collaborator in the process on this, which was really rewarding.
So again, this program, Love Letters, streams this Saturday. And I think for this program, even more than usual, obviously we are all remote, and that means you don't have a program book in your hands. But because the texts are so important and because there's so many different pieces that you'll want to keep track of as you're watching, I do hope that you all will go to our website and download the program and the text translations for the songs that we'll be doing. That way you can follow along and know where we are in the program and what composers you might want to seek out more recordings of. And again, there are a few pieces that Taylor's singing in German. So having those texts and even being able to read through that poetry ahead of time just really helps understand what you're listening to. And maybe then in the moment, from my perspective as the pianist, lots of times you'll be able to hear how these composers masterfully write the piano part to kind of set the backdrop for the actual text itself, which I think is always a unique perspective for the pianist, to not just think about how to play the notes, but what do the notes mean, and all of that. And so I think let's move on. This is a question in a completely different direction. But there's a question here. What can you report on the new auditorium? What will be the capacity? Will LAMF be able to fill the seats? And yes, while still a ways off, we are following the progress. And actually, for those of you tuning in that don't know, the Brainerd Public Schools is building a new performing arts center in Brainerd, Minnesota, which will be the future home of LAMF. Construction is on track to actually be completed this spring. And so our 2021 season, in whatever form it is, will be from that Performing Arts Center. There's 1,200 seats, so it'll be a little bit bigger than our current home of Tornstrom Auditorium. There will be an orchestra pit and some different spaces that we'll be able to use also for lectures or smaller concerts. So, so things are on track, looking good for that. And yes, we'll be able to fill all of those seats. And we look forward to having all of you join us there when we do get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, there's a question here from Karen Ford. Can you talk about the art piece that's behind you?
Oh, I cannot take credit for this. I am in New York City currently working on some projects, and I am staying in the home of a friend of mine, Setsuko Yamashita, so I have to give her all of the credit for this. I think she wanted to make her apartment here in New York a little slice of her favorite city, which is Paris. So all around me is a little bit of a French vibe going on, but I'm very happy to be here and to get to enjoy all of this lovely art.
And I commented on it earlier that there's two people there, and maybe they are a lover and a beloved. They have exchanged love letters.
They might have written a letter to each other at some point.
At least one.
Yeah.
Great. Again, keep sending in any questions. For this recital, it was also fun being in, having the piano here in my place here in Minneapolis, because during COVID, it's obviously difficult to find places to go. And in the past, I have just had a little electric piano that Taylor and I usually rehearse on. But I think it was really fun just socially as well as musically, that Taylor came back here to Minnesota for about a month and stayed here with my boyfriend Jake and I and our dog Sienna, and had a chance to hang out and be a family unit for a month, and not really have to ever leave the house because we could just rehearse and hang out and do festival work and all of that in the same place for such a long amount of time.
And I think this whole year has brought into focus, for me at least, that that's really the way that I love to work the most. And we have that experience even in a usual summer, but this year the sort of bubble nature of it has been heightened. But I love having the opportunity to work on a program like this with people that I enjoy so much in a situation where we're not just seeing each other for rehearsals and then parting ways, but we're cooking, sharing meals, you know, having coffee, and the project can sort of take up a lot of your domestic life as well. So you're sort of just living in the preparation for this concert, and I love working like that because you get to be totally immersed in what you're doing, and you can go and rehearse anytime. You can all of a sudden have an idea of a new piece or a new idea anytime, and having that access to your collaborators is really a rare treat. And it's one of the sort of silver linings, I think, of this bizarre year for the performing arts, is that when we have gotten to produce things, by necessity, they've been really close, intimate bubbles. And I would say that for the summer season, as well as now for this winter concert.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I love this question from Catherine, who asks, can you tell us about your new piano? And I was going to even ask, in addition to that, of course, tell us about the piano. I'm curious to know, is there anything interesting that you learned about the instrument through the process of putting this recital together? This is the first time you've really played it a lot. Did you get to know any of the little quirks or personality of the instrument?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying you talked a little bit about how the process of putting a concert together when you're living and working and eating and rehearsing all in the same place. And that is particularly different because normally we've had just an electric piano, or even before that, we've done some concerts where I haven't had a piano in my place, and I have had to go to a church at a specific time and use the piano that they would let me. And I know we've had to be more rigid about, well, we can only rehearse during these times because it's when we could get into a church. So for rehearsals, that's a lot different. But for me as a pianist, it's also a lot different. And so having the piano, I was able to practice for this recital quite a bit more than I sometimes do, which is very nice. So the piano is a Bösendorfer piano. It's about 7 feet long. And it's actually not going to be new to all of you either, because we actually used it for all of our concerts this summer at Tornstrom Auditorium. So it's a piano that was built in 1979. And for 30 years, it lived on Lake Margaret, just on the west side of Gull Lake. This summer, I purchased it and we used it for the festival, and then it got moved down here to my condo. So what I really love about it is it has a really nice low register. So when I'm playing down in the bass, especially live, you just really hear that sustain. And it also has kind of a special feature of Bösendorfers are they'll sometimes have models with extra keys in the bass. So this piano, instead of having 88 keys, has 92. And even though we don't normally use those notes a lot, just having those strings that can vibrate and add a little bit is very nice. Over the week or two before we started working on this, I did have a lot of work done to it. So I had a technician that spent 2 full days here and then came back for another tuning, all kind of getting ready for this concert, but more importantly, just after 30 years from being out of the factory, and then 30 years, a lot changes. So kind of getting it up to speed for the next 30 years. And yeah, it's kind of my new toy. This fall, we aren't able to do as much work planning for next summer as we normally would be, jumping in and starting to do everything. We're kind of on hold a bit with our planning for obvious reasons. So having a piano to kind of work on my technique and play for fun. I'm playing a lot of Bach, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So you all will have a chance to hear it in my living room this Saturday. And if you want a sneak peek of it before that, you can listen to any of the concerts from this summer, which are still up on our website or on our YouTube channel. And anytime you see a piano, that's the one that you'll be seeing this Saturday.
We have a great question from Darcy on Facebook, who is asking, how are things with regard to support for nonprofits in Minnesota and in particular for LAMF?
Great. Hi, Darcy. Darcy plays in orchestras with me. And funding, it's obviously a difficult year, and for a lot of organizations, if you're not able to be doing any performances or have to cut down, and also the reality of lots of cancellations. The arts as a whole, I think, need the support of their donors now more than ever, even if it's during a time where there's no concerts going on. In Minnesota, we are lucky by the fact that we're one of the top states for legislative arts funding. And so there are a few grant programs through the State Arts Board or other foundations that have helped us get through this time. And LAMF, specific to LAMF, the timing of the pandemic actually set us up better than other organizations, I think, because we did know by the time several months out that we weren't going to be able to host our summer season as we would have otherwise. So the fact that in March we could be stepping back and looking at our season and making adjustments led us to a place financially that we kind of wrapped up this season well, and are going into next season not from a place of desperation of like, oh, what are we going to do? And what are we going to be able to afford to do, to really being able to look at our budget for the next year and make sure that whatever we're able to do, we'll be able to really do a celebration that we want in this new Performing Arts Center. So obviously there's some grant programs and different types of support coming in, but for sure, all of you who are fans and supporters of the festival, as well as our corporate sponsors, really have made a huge difference in making all of our concerts and programs possible.
Mm-hmm. We've got another question here on Zoom that is asking if we will continue to have some parts of LAMF available online once COVID is no longer an issue. I think that's a great question, and the short answer is yes, probably. There's in the end of that question, it asks about whether we think that would threaten our in-person audience, and I really don't think so. I don't think there's anything that can replace the experience of being in the hall with the musicians, seeing a live performance. So I think that any online content that we have moving forward will probably be some of the concerts from our season. And the reason that we would keep doing that is not only so we and our audience and our artists can sort of have that record of the great work that they do for LAMF, but it also enables us to extend our reach beyond just people who are able to make it to Brainerd for the summer or Minneapolis in the wintertime. And this summer we were so fortunate to develop a really worldwide audience through our programs, since everything was available and free for anybody around the world to see. We want to stay in touch with those people, even if they're never going to make it to Brainerd. We still want to keep in touch with them and be a part of their cultural life.
Yeah, and I would add to that, we've always made it a priority to make sure that our concerts are accessible. And you know, for over a decade, that has really manifested itself in terms of not selling tickets or charging a set fee, but opening up to anyone who wants to attend. And I think the accessibility of going online this summer made it possible for a lot of new people to learn about us, as well as a lot of people who didn't make it back to Minnesota, or even thinking of this concert now with snowbirds perhaps already gone. Being online is a great way to continue to make our music and our mission accessible. And so I think we would love to, as much as possible. But one of the big things about going online is just the added expense. And this past summer, as we were thinking, how are we going to make it through this difficult year financially, having our concerts online brought an added expense of $27,000 for a video crew. On top of that, there are a lot of licenses and fees that you have to pay to go online. And so that's something that we'll definitely have to consider moving forward, because we'll want to have the bigger ensembles, and we want to spend every dollar that our supporters contribute on artistic things like that, and producing the best events that we can. And so a new program that you've probably already seen for this upcoming concert and for all of our winter concerts is a producer system. And that is something new that we've added, inviting individual donors to make a gift specifically to produce our concerts online. And so for this concert, we have executive producers Troy and Heather Dunnick and Carol Cook, and associative producers David and Mary Boren and Paul and Claire Rude. And so this is just another giving opportunity that does enable us to do these concerts online.
I would encourage everybody on Facebook or Zoom, get those questions in if you have any. And Scott, I wanted to ask, so we sort of started with the germ of the Corn Gold coming in as one of your favorite pieces. Now that we've done everything, what do you think was your favorite piece to perform or practice?
Oh, on this concert?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the program so I don't forget anything. Well, we talked about the Coleridge Taylor and how it's just like light and fun for the most part. This is the piece we chose to end this program. So kind of sending out. So that was a lot of fun to work on. And then I think, even though it's not unusual, I love playing Schubert songs. Liebesbotschaft is Love's Message, is the fourth piece on the program. And it's one that we've performed a couple times. And I think it is a piece that I will never feel completely comfortable and happy with. So I think with the new piano, having time to spend a lot more time than I normally would on that piece in particular, to try to keep getting it closer to how I would want to sound. That's probably, not surprisingly, still one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was actually going to say for myself, that of course learning the new pieces was really exciting and really fun to sort of dig into, but I think some of the most rewarding stuff that we did was going back to things that we have performed in some capacity in the past, and just seeing how the interpretation of them has grown. And there's when you live with a piece for years, all of a sudden you come back to it and it's a little more comfortable than it was the first time. I think that's
good.
Not surprising probably, but it's a really nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.